Hello and welcome to another Alzheimer's Society of Calgary video. This morning we're here to talk a bit about communication and how to communicate well with somebody living with dementia. I'm Paul Bartel, the Manager of Learning and Support Services, and joining me this morning is
Samantha Ray, a Support Services Coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary.
So yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to try and spend about 10 minutes or so talking about communication. So Sam, can you tell us a bit about what kind of changes happen to somebody with dementia that may make communication more difficult?
For sure. So as the disease starts to progress, it's going to be harder for the person with the diagnosis to communicate what their wants and needs are, right? So that could be they're having difficulty with word finding, right? So they'll maybe start to describe an object as opposed to using that object's name. Sometimes they'll also, if English is a second language, go back to their mother tongue as well. And it's going to take somebody with dementia a little bit longer to kind of process
Right.
what it is that you're saying to them and to formulate a response. So it can be really challenging, and sometimes as the care partner, you might need to repeat what it is that you've asked for them.
Okay. And having to repeat things can be a little frustrating. So, but that's something people need to think about as they're preparing for this.
Yes, right. I mean, most people with dementia have that short-term memory loss, and so it's harder for them to remember that information. So you will get that repetitive questioning, and that's really not uncommon. It can be very frustrating as a caregiver, though, to have to repeat over and over again what they've said already.
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things I have seen happen or heard about happening is because these communication challenges start to happen, and because the person with dementia is maybe having trouble describing what they need or what they're asking for, that people just kind of humor them and don't necessarily pay attention to what it is that's trying to be communicated. Have you seen that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
For sure, right? I mean, because it's harder for somebody to articulate and use those common words, it's going to be harder to understand what it is that they need and what they mean. I had a caregiver share that her dad was trying to tell her that the cat needed in, but he couldn't say, "Oh dear, the cat needs in." He was meowing.
Right. Yeah.
So what she did is she investigated, right? "I'm sorry, Dad. What are you trying to tell me? Can you show me?" And so through those questions, she was able to find out that the cat actually needed to come in. So it's really up to the care partners to kind of investigate, what is it that my person is trying to tell me? What is it that they need?
Right. And I mean, in that case, it's about a pet that needs to come in, but
Yep.
it could be something about a serious health concern or something else going on.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
yeah, so there is that need to kind of play detective at times and really try to
Exactly.
understand what's going on.
Exactly, right? I mean, I think it's always important to make sure that we let that person know that they're being heard, right? Their perceptions of reality might be a little bit different than what our perceptions are, but I think it's really important to make sure that we meet them there and investigate what's going on, what's happening for them, how can we support them, and support this communication.
Right. Which is a tiring job, and it starts to help me understand why some caregivers start to feel fairly tired and worn out by doing this.
It's exhausting, right? And it's easy to fall back into old habits, because I mean, as language or as communication changes, you're learning new skills, right? You're learning a new way to communicate with somebody that you've had a history of communicating with already. And so when you're tired, when you've had to say the same thing for the 50th time, it's easy to fall back into those old patterns. It's easy to get frustrated and say, I've already told you, right? So sometimes it's maybe taking a bit of a step back, right? Going for a walk around the house to calm yourself down and kind of restart.
Okay. And then, there are some strategies to, as you said, some new skills here that maybe need to be learned. So what are some of the strategies or skills that we've heard about or that we've learned about that can help with this?
Well, don't argue, for one, right?
That's a big one.
I haven't met a caregiver who has won an argument with somebody with dementia. And that has lasting effects throughout the day, right? That person might forget, but an hour later you might still be fuming about it, right? And frustrated. Another thing is going back to meeting them in their reality, honoring their truth and meeting them there. And it's okay to kind of go along with that. They might not be present here in this moment. They might be back 20 years ago when they were younger, when they had younger children and are telling you a story about
something from them.
Exactly, right? And so it's okay to agree and go along and reminisce with them on that instead of correcting and saying, well, no, your children are all grown. They're not in school anymore. Because that can cause confusion, anxiety, and stress.
And I can see that kind of ties back into that avoid arguing tip that you started with.
Exactly, right? So it's also really important to have simpler sentences, right? Instead of saying, oh dear, I'm going to the grocery store to pick up your medications and some milk, and I'm going to stop at the gas station before I come back home and fill the car up. That might be too big, too much information for somebody with dementia. It might be, dear, I'm just heading to the grocery store. I'm going to be back in a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Short sentences, simple ideas.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So that way they get the understanding, okay, so you're leaving, but you're going to be coming back.
Right.
Right. So, and often you might have to repeat something and using gestures to indicate what it is that you need or what you're wanting. Right. It's, oh, Mom, could you set the table? Here's the plates. Oh, Mom, these plates, they just need to go over here. Right. Giving them more time to process and then using additional cues to help them understand.
Okay. And with that processing speed, I imagine we tend to talk very fast. Probably another good tip would just be to slow down how we talk, how fast we tend to talk.
Yes, exactly, right? And I mean, I think sometimes we get caught up in the moment, especially if we're sharing something that's happened to us during the day that we want to share with somebody. It's easy to kind of get caught up in the excitement of something, but really if we want somebody to understand, we've got to slow it down a little bit, and it's okay to check in as well, right? To make sure that they do understand what it is that you're asking.
Okay. Another tip that I've heard or read is the importance of how to use nonverbal communication. And you mentioned a bit about using some cueing, but I'm wondering, are there some other cues around or some other tips around using our nonverbal as opposed to just what we're saying?
Oh, for sure, right? It's really important to be aware of our body language because we do communicate a lot of what we're saying and how we're feeling through our body language, right? You and I are both fairly open, right? We've got our shoulders back, right? This is definitely a little bit more closed, and so somebody's that's like this, your person may misinterpret that as you being upset with them, even though it's something that happened earlier in the day. It has nothing to do with that person, but they can't necessarily understand why you're upset. Or even if you've told them, they maybe have forgotten. So it's really important to make sure what is our body telling our person.
As well.
Yeah.
Okay. And that speaks to another idea that we like to talk about here, and that's the idea of emotional contagion. And could you explain that a bit?
So that emotional contagion is really your person kind of mirroring how you're feeling, right? So I think really it's checking in with yourself if you've had a really bad day and you're going to go visit a parent, right? Maybe things at work didn't go very well, somebody cut you off and you almost had an accident. Maybe there's something going on with one of your kids at school, so you're really stressed, you're really angry, you're really frustrated. If you're not able to kind of package that up and put that aside for a little bit later before going into that visit, your person is going to be able to feel that anxiety, that stress, that frustration, and your visit isn't going to go well because they're going to start kind of mirroring that. They're going to be stressed, they're going to be agitated, and it's going to be a more difficult interaction, and it's going to make communication that much more difficult.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for taking some time to talk with us about communication and some communication strategies, Sam. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. If you have any questions on this topic or any other topic, please feel free to reach out to us at either 403-290-0110, or you can drop us an email at findsupport@alzheimercalgary.ca. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another video. And if you have any topics or questions on things you think we should address in one of these videos, please feel free to leave a comment here on our Facebook page, and we will do our best to do that. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.